Japanese edition of The Lord of the Rings was published in the 1970s, illustrated by Ryuichi Terashima, who should be familiar to all ardent viewers of this channel, since we also covered his edition of The Hobbit in a previous video. The first edition of The Lord of the Rings was split into 6 books, and here I have one of them, the first half of the Fellowship of the Ring. As you can see, each volume came in its own slipcase, bearing a color illustration by Terashima, and these paintings are a real treat. It's a shame none of the subsequent editions use them as cover illustrations, or at least frontispieces. The design of the covers, including the color of the cloth, seems to be taken from the first UK edition, specifically the recognizable ring motif on the spine. The other volumes I have are from a later set that shares the same format as the first Japanese edition, as well as the similar soft red cloth binding, although with a different typography on the spines. The interior Terashima illustrations are also present, however instead of slipcases the books come in Alan Lee illustrated dust jackets. I'm not a huge fan of those, and I do intend to someday design my own replacement jackets, but we can save that for another video. And here is that same first volume of the Fellowship, only this time from the newer set. The print quality of the illustrations seems a lot better. They have much stronger blacks compared to the somewhat faded first edition. All of the books come with their own fold-out maps, handsomely designed, including the parts of the map relevant to each book. I do believe the first editions also came with maps, although my copy sadly did not. There's a couple different sets with the Terashima illustrations available. One other I considered getting was a smaller pocket paperback set, also using Alan Lee covers, although with a different design. Those books look very cute and unique, but I opted for this one for the obvious benefits of hardcover cloth sewn binding and, most importantly, the larger format that these highly detailed illustrations deserve. The Lord of the Rings is not as widely illustrated as The Hobbit. Even the first UK illustrated edition did not appear until 1991, so it's a special thing to see someone else's interpretation from this early on. Compared to his work on The Hobbit, this time Terashima took a more spontaneous approach, less concerned with composition and design, and perhaps more with atmosphere. Since the illustrations were printed in black and white, he had free rein when it comes to the scenes he wanted to depict and their placement in the book, so it is interesting to see his choices. There are some rarely seen events depicted here, and a lot of the more commonly represented scenes are interpreted in quite a unique way. For example, there is this strange portrayal of Gollum where we can see the poor creature in 2 distinct poses at once. I'm not sure if this is meant to be a creative way of showing movement, or perhaps his interior dual nature. Or this one showing Gandalf going over the history of the ring, with multiple events all intermingled in the same drawing. One nice treat related to the name of this channel is a close-up view of the Bookel-men, statues on the road to Dunharrow not often depicted. You'll notice that there's one extra volume compared to the 6 volumes of the first edition, containing the appendices. I'm not sure whether they were initially excluded in the first edition or perhaps incorporated into the Return of the King volumes. Maybe someone else knows more about that. But whenever I come upon an illustrated Lord of the Rings, I check to see whether someone finally graced the appendices with some artwork, and I haven't seen it done yet. So many interesting stories in that part of the book, yet always they remain neglected. Such is the case here as well. The books also include double-page spreads, only a couple of them, mostly depicting the battle scenes. One exception is the very last illustration, showing this touching scene of the 3 hobbits looking over the grey havens after Frodo sails away into the west. And as Frodo's friends say goodbye to him, I must bid you farewell too. Until the next video, of course. Goodbye.